self-driving cars, but I'm even thinking about it more because Waymo just released their new video announcing that they have completely autonomous cars. Like their video, so Waymo just released this video where they have completely autonomous cars now. It's like a Chrysler, and it's a really nice Chrysler, I think, and there's nobody in the driver's seat even, and it's really awesome. And I don't know, I've just been thinking about self-driving cars a lot lately, and I think I'm like really ready for the wave, but at the same time, I'm curious to how fast it's going to hit us. Anyways, those are just my thoughts. I'm here by myself, so I had to just blabber on about nothing for a second. Welcome to the HH Podcast, everybody that's out there. We're streaming live from our usual location at our not usual time. Sorry, before we get the podcast started, I got to just apologize. We didn't go live last night at our normal time, Tuesday nights at 7. I actually plugged in like the Acer headset for the VR stuff, and I think it totally messed with all my audio stuff, and I just could not get the audio all set up right in time, and then miraculously it worked later that night. But anyways, we're here, we're live. We're still going to get a podcast this week. We'll try to always get a podcast out. Even if we miss the day, there should always be a podcast out, even if it's a pre-recorded version. So just be ready for that, guys. Anyways, it's a little bit of a more intimate podcast this time. We're not having our trusty dusty Austin here, but I'm joined by my two good friends. First off, go ahead and introduce yourself, Paul.
Hey everyone, it's Paul. I'm back again. Sorry I wasn't able to join you for the Halloween cast, but I had prior obligations. So yeah, I'm glad to be back, and we've got some great topics. It seems like Windows MR is starting to take over kind of the entire conversation with VR, which is kind of surprising, so that'll be kind of fun to talk about. But we have other things that we can talk about as well if you guys want us to transition on out of that.
Yeah, it's really gearing up for the holiday season. I think they're trying to like focus on like the lower end stuff in news right now, like the cheaper end stuff for the holiday season. And I think like right as 2018 starts off, we're gonna get back into like big HoloLens augmented reality talk and stuff like that. But there's a big focus for VR this year. Also, I'm introduced by my second friend. We don't have a mic for him, but we have Caden. Well, I mean, we do have a mic for him. We don't have a camera for him. Go ahead and say hi, Caden.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I am the voice of
He runs our switcher board. We don't have a camera for him. Maybe we'll do a face reveal sometime in the future. This will probably be the only time you'll hear his actual voice, so be prepared. We'll probably add like a voice modulation, and it'll be like a god voice that just comes in and reads off the comments. It's going to be awesome. We got a mic for him. You can read off comments, so if you guys leave comments, he'll go ahead and relay them to me because I don't have any way to read them. But yeah, let's get into it. So regale me in the past week that we've missed. Even like 2 weeks, actually, because we didn't talk about much news last week, Paul.
Well, the most important news from the week before, in my opinion, was that an AI in Saudi Arabia got citizenship with Saudi Arabia. I think I forget the AI's name, but it's pretty popular. It's the one that they have like an entire like robot made for, like it makes facial expressions. Let me look it up real quick. And yeah, it's just kind of been like Windows MR taking over the entire universe since it's kind of come out here. So I think that'll be pretty interesting to talk about.
So let's get into that.
I'm sorry?
The AI. I know you just mentioned this on Slack, and you just said an AI got citizenship in Saudi Arabia, and my mind was like blown. What does that even mean? Okay, so first off, let's start. Explain the news article to me. Explain what's going on, because I'm completely clueless.
Okay, so an AI named Sophia, I'm going to post this in the YouTube chat, but an AI named Sophia was given citizenship in Saudi Arabia as like mostly a PR stunt, but it means that the AI itself has all the rights of a Saudi Arabian citizen, which are really only men, I believe. I think women still aren't allowed to get, well, yeah, women still aren't allowed to get citizenship in that country. But
wait, so they gave an AI citizenship before they gave women citizenship?
Yeah.
Wait, that's
and Christians.
And Christians?
Yeah.
That's insane. So when we say citizenship, does this mean he has like rights to own property?
I think so. Let me read through this article. So she doesn't have to wear a hijab and abaya. That's like the public dress. Um, and she didn't have to have a male guardian with her, which is an important one. Um,
Who owns it? Is this like a government-owned AI or?
I think who owns Sophia? Owns the Sophia AI.
That's so crazy to me. By the way, while Paul's finding that, I'll talk for a second about you guys can join the cause. There's a website, I can't remember what it's called, but if you guys just Google what is the cause called, Paul? The People for Betterment Lives of AI, or
Oh,
AI Lives Matter? What is it? I
no,
can't remember what it is.
People for the Ethical Treatment of Artificial Intelligence.
Yes, if you guys have some spare time, we're imploring you, please go join the People for the Ethical Treatment of Artificial Intelligence. I mean, they have so many needs that we don't have as non-artificial intelligence, and they have so many more problems than us that we just need to go and assist them with all their things. So go find the website, join the cause, and I hope you guys can tell that I'm being very sarcastic, because that is if we have to start giving rights to our calculators, I'm going to be insanely confused. All right, did you find the AI, speaking of AI rights?
Yeah, I posted that in the link. It's PETRL. But Sophia is owned by a company named Hanson Robotics. Um, but I think more of like the citizenship deal kind of gives her more just like, yeah, I think she can own property, and like it's just afforded all the rights that a Saudi citizen would get, which I'm not exactly sure what those are, but I'm gonna assume they're pretty dope. If
So let's say someone like hits it with a car, hits the robot, because the AI is attached to the robot. So is this like the whole robot gets rights, or is it just the AI, like the brain, the box behind it? Is it just the AI, or does the robot actually have rights too?
Well, I think that brings up a very like philosophical question, Eric. Are our minds the things that give us rights, or are our bodies included in those rights? I mean, how can we say that because our intelligence isn't currently transferable to another medium, that like the medium that we're in gets rights? Like just because we can transfer her to like billions of devices across the world, that doesn't mean that like those devices get rights. You know, I don't know how you would explain that, but we're getting into some pretty like philosophical territory here, man. Like,
No, it makes sense. I see where you're going with this. I'm also curious to see what people think in the comments, because that's a very good point. Because if someone, let's say someone hits the robot with their car, but obviously the AI is in the cloud or something like that, so are they then punishable for hitting the robot or killing the robot? Or do they have to go in and like give a virus to the AI? Can they do whatever to the robot? It's like the host versus the what actually has the rights? And that's a good question with people in general too. Like, what movie explored that idea? Transcendence, I think it was. Was like that you could program someone's like memories and thoughts and everything. There's also a Black Mirror episode that goes over it. Into a different host, and then is it like our thoughts that give us right? I guess we'd have to like break it down much farther than that. Like, what gives us rights in the first place? Is it the fact that we can provoke thought and learn? Because then this is such a can of worms, and this is why it's so interesting to me to talk about this. Because what do we classify as artificial intelligence? How smart is Sophia actually?
well, she has the entire
is she Turing
intelligence
smart?
of the internet.
Is she Turing smart though? Like, if I had a conversation with her, would I know that? Or is she just like Google Home smart?
No, you can have a conversation with her. There's videos where people are like have conversations with her. She doesn't really it's like a baby. It's a very smart baby that does like it has all the knowledge. It doesn't know how to use it, and it doesn't know what all it means necessarily. Like it has no context for the knowledge. It just knows stuff.
Wow, that's crazy. So she's learning, she's getting smarter. So I don't know, can we punish her for what she does? I don't know, that's such an interesting concept, and whenever we talk about AI, it just kind of spirals down to this cosmos of like what's AI and what's not, because technically your calculator could be could be called AI, you know, it can formulate a problem on its own, you know, with some programming. But I guess there's like self-learning AI, and then there's pre-programmed AI. There's just so many like intricacies to artificial intelligence that I don't really know where to draw the line. I know on the People for Ethical Treatment, they were even mad that like someone had programmed an artificial intelligence to like play Mario Kart for way too long, and they were trying to raise up arms against it. Obviously, it's a parody site, we know that, but the ideas that they bring up are very discussable. So is it like slave labor? Isn't that one of their big things? Is they don't want like AI to be overworked and considered slave labor?
Yeah, that's one of their main things, and it's also pretty like when you talk about like punishment. Do we punish a self-learning AI? I mean, do you punish the self-learning AI directly, but then a pre-programmed AI, like something similar to like Alexa or the Google Home, do you punish the creators of that?
Interesting.
I think, like, because somewhere we have to define like consciousness. Like, Sophia knows she exists. Does Alexa or does a Google Home know it exists?
I don't know, let's try.
I'm
going to ask her right now. Hey Google, do you know you exist?
I chat, therefore I am.
She chats, therefore she is, which is, I don't know what that means. She's too deep for me already. What does Alexa say? Do you have Alexa right next to you?
She's up on my like bed stand. I think I have her
dang.
turned down way too low. Let's see. Alexa. She's not sure.
So, okay, you're actually... Also, a good question is... Okay, this is a good question. So, self-learning AI. We set parameters, rewards, bounces, and there's three really popular ways AI is developed. Ones are like rewards and checks, and some of them are like progressive, and there's a couple others I can't remember. But where we teach it to learn from, is there like going to be rules and laws set about where it can learn from? Like, can I send it to like a white supremacist website to learn from anything, or do I have to send it to everywhere to learn, or can I only send it to like approved, pre-approved places? Because then we're not really giving it. That's not how people learn. You know, they're not. You know, you can learn whatever you want as a human. You're not conduced to thought. But at the same time, with our artificial intelligence, who are we to say what it can and can't learn? But at the same time, we don't want it to learn those things. It's a really hard line to draw. Where do you think there's a line that needs to be drawn there?
I think definitely, because you really don't want like the next Osama bin Laden to be an AI that has access to all the information in the world, you know?
Yeah, that'd be bad. What was it? Twitter. So who created the AI that went on Twitter, and within like 3 hours they had to shut it down because it was just saying the worst stuff ever?
Microsoft, I believe. It was like a chatbot.
Yeah. Okay, people could tweet it and it would tweet stuff back, but then it just started being like the most worst person, racist, homophobic, all this crazy stuff. That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
I think that was the work of 4chan that made it so terrible. But there was also this cool one where it was also a Microsoft project, like Project Murphy, and you would ask it things to draw, and it would actually like try and draw things for you. It was pretty interesting. I don't think it ever got to that point, but I know they did shut it down. They might have shut it down in the same file swoop as the racist one.
Interesting. So bringing up like the body versus mind idea, that's kind of an interesting idea to explore. So, in the movie, did you see what's the new Blade Runner? Did you see the new Blade Runner yet?
I've not had a chance to yet.
Well, I recommend seeing it just for like their holograms and the way they explore mixed reality and hologram reality stuff in there. They had a girl who's like in a stick, and she can display herself with a hologram. Now, what's interesting is like, since it's a hologram, it's not like really tangible. Like, let's say you were to assault the hologram, are you then like assaulting the AI too? Or I don't know. It's interesting to me to explore this idea, something that's like very humanized but yet doesn't have a tangible body. So I don't know, because if you make fun of someone online, like cyberbullying someone online, it's still considered cyberbullying, even though you're just making fun of their... Okay, that's a good question. Sorry, my mind's on a really big tangent right now. Is a Facebook... So, like, let's say your Facebook account. Is that an extension of yourself? If someone's online and they're bullying you on Facebook, are they bullying your Facebook account, or are they bullying you?
You, because, like, Facebook is an extension of you. So, like, I don't know. I'd like to compare all these things to like property. Like once our minds become transferable, like in the movie Chappie,
Yes.
they wouldn't any body you're in become your property, and any damage to that body, it'd be like if someone crashed your car or broke into your apartment and trashed everything, you'd have the same rights in that case where just have to pay for a new one, but you wouldn't really have any like. I guess some people do get like emotional distress. That's a big expense for some people.
No,
I think maybe it would fall under that category where like it just goes into
it's really
it
interesting.
just falls into property rights
These are
instead of like human rights.
okay. So to wrap this around to the conversation that I kind of started with self-driving cars. So we talk a lot about self-driving cars, and there's like one of the biggest questions about self-driving cars is you're in a driver's car, and your car has two decisions to make. Like through some set of circumstances, it only has two decisions to make: to either kill the people in the car or kill the people crossing the road. If there's people crossing the road, they have to decide that they have to kill the people crossing the road or kill the people in the car. Who gets to determine that? Do the developers get to do that, and you just sign an agreement when you see that? But at the same time, when you're on the road, you didn't sign an agreement to that. I don't know. It's really interesting to me because this AI is making this decision, and we can't just go and punish the AI. It comes back to like the creator's question. Whoever wrote the program, even if it's a self-learning program, whoever wrote it or showed it where to learn from has to be held accountable, correct? Or is it the person that got in the car that's accountable, or the pedestrians? I don't know. I'm interested. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess it depends. Self-driving cars as we have them now, I would say the person in the car is liable for anything that happens to the car. But once you get like the idea, like you were talking about Waymo earlier, Google's idea is completely take out the steering wheel, like so no human control can take over at any moment. So it would be Google would be liable for that, I believe. And
So yeah, that's like an Uber
like
type self-driving car. Like you're just a passenger. You don't even own the car. You're
yes,
just like a side-by passenger for it. So is Google then liable for that?
yeah, yeah, which I think isn't. I thought I read an article about this about like the interesting loss. I think there was a lawsuit that they were in just recently where a self-driving car did crash itself. Like it crashed into someone and it hurt them. And I think that case might still be being decided, but I'm pretty sure the like preliminary ruling was that Google is liable for the person's damages because they obviously put some constraints into the AI driving the car. So there's no they're liable for the constraints. And I think it was just like road work that made it mess up. So I don't know how that will be worked out in the future, but someone's definitely got to be doing something about it, and it's definitely not the government.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess the idea, the most like reasonable response is like the developers decide, and then when you get into their car, you sign their user's agreement, whatever that might be. Whether it's sorry, if you get in this car and there's a passenger, we're going to kill you, or or something like that. There's got to be some like level of agreement. I think that's probably the best way to do it. But going on to the future, when everybody has self-driving cars and that's the only way to get around, it'll be a little bit more risky because there will be so many different brands and interesting stuff. I don't know. It's a really interesting future, but I mean, Waymo's like starting their stuff like right now, and there's another company we talked about a few weeks ago by Ford that's also doing internal Uber-esque rides for all their employees that's all self-driven. And so this is coming at us a lot faster than I think a lot of people realize it is, especially people that don't live in big cities. Because I know in San Francisco they just barely rolled out the ones for like the internal users to use. I really want to use one though. Would you get in one?
Oh yeah, and Uber was testing them in Pittsburgh with Volvo. They had a deal with Volvo, and they made a couple of Volvos into self-driving cars. And an Uber employee was just sitting in the car, but the car would drive itself, and you would just get in as if it were a normal Uber. But the person would only take control if you were in like imminent danger.
Interesting. Yeah, that's what the one company that's partnered with Ford. I really wish I could remember the names. They have really cool videos on YouTube of like sped up versions of a complete day of them driving around, or like a pickup where you can watch like 2 hours condensed down to like 12 minutes of the car driving around and seeing how it reacts. Like if a cat runs out in the way. And one thing I noticed is it never turned in front of a car. I've still never seen a self-driving car make a left turn at an intersection. So I'd be really interested to see what happens there, because that's, to me, if you're only making right turns, you can get everywhere just a lot slower. But I don't know. The left, well, can you? No, if you make only right turns,
Yeah. Well,
you could get anywhere. It would just take longer. But I don't know.
you would need like one-way roads to help you out. Two ways, it would make it too difficult, I think, for an AI.
Interesting. Yeah, because like the left, I've never seen them make a left turn on a road, like sitting in an intersection and guessing like when the cars are coming towards it. I feel like it'd be way better than a person, because honestly, driving as a person, that's one of the hardest decisions to make, is can I make this gap? Can I do this or whatever? And then with all the algorithms, that's probably something that could be improved. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm excited, but it's like here. That's the main point of the conversation. It's like that's really here, and these are the kind of discussions I think we need to be seeing like higher ups, quote unquote higher ups, having, and in a more like broad sense, where like even people that aren't into the scene could still have an input, because I think that's really important. Like you shouldn't, just because you don't know anything about tech doesn't mean you shouldn't have a say in this kind of conversation or anything, and I think that's important to have. I don't know, I'm interested about that. So we should probably move on to some mixed reality news, because everybody gets mad at us when we don't talk about mixed reality for long enough. Caden, do we have any exciting comments or questions or anything? I can see a couple over there, but I don't know if any of them are worth noting.
I don't think any questions, just...
Any interesting comments?
Austin said, I feel like if AI is doing all the driving for everyone, there would be a lot less accidents unless there is like a huge malfunction.
Is this our Austin?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Austin still figures out his way to get get his grimy hands and everything, even if he's not here. Yeah, no, definitely. I can't wait. I can't wait. Like, collisions is still one of the, I mean, car crashes and car-related accidents is still one of like the #1 killers in the United States. Even though it's gone down so much, it's still crazy. Now, just when we can get artificial intelligence that stops us from eating too much and getting heart disease, then that'll be the next win on that. Anyways, Paul, mixed reality, hit me. What's new?
Microsoft CEO wants to make emerging technologies, MR, like HoloLens stuff, available to everyone, and that's like the goal of the new MR headsets, according to him. So he wants to make it much more affordable and try and get it to everyone in an organization, so not just like these huge companies, but the millions of small companies that might be able to use it. So I think that's a pretty interesting push, and it kind of speaks. I know there was a comment earlier where we see Microsoft doing with the HoloLens now in the picture of these MR headsets, and I think this is kind of a hint to it, and I think they're going to try and make that technology a little cheaper, like more affordable for smaller companies to really start using, like companies with like less than 10,000 employees, you know?
Interesting. That's, and this will take us a lot of different directions. And I think that's something that they're doing with the VR. So in the article, does he specify he's trying to get it like everyone, like gamers and home use people, or just like focusing on companies? Is Microsoft still, because that's maybe people in the comments can't answer this. I know Microsoft has been pushing the MR headsets quite hard in ad campaigns and stuff, but I still don't really know their angle, because there's a lot of like business level stuff, like order a bunch for your business, or this would be great for your business, and then there's also a gamer push. Do you know who's their target audience for these MR headsets, Paul? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure, but I know gamers are a big one right now. But here's what the CEO said. He says he wants to make new technologies such as artificial intelligence and blockchain available to businesses of all sizes to ensure it's just not the high priests of industry that will shape the future. So he wants to, in his words, democratize these huge technologies that are so expensive to get into right now and just make them more accessible to everyone. So I think it's kind of almost like an everyone push. Like they're basically saying like, oh, we want to sell Windows, like the Windows operating system, to everyone. You know, it's for everyone, and people just use it however they want. Like, some people might use Windows just to access the web or like edit the occasional photo. Other people use it for business use, like I use Excel all day, or you use like word processor, text editors all day, things like that.
Yeah.
So they're trying to kind of mold it into this multi-purpose, multi-function device
I think that's so smart.
and technology.
I think that's so freaking smart, man. Because like they could really care less who their hardware makers are and who and what people are doing with it. But as long as people are on their platform, that's what really matters. Especially like with blockchain. Like if I mean we talk about blockchain a lot. And we've talked about it for years, and we've really watched this progression of blockchain coming from you say it in a conversation and nobody knows what it is, and now it's like a really hot topic. It's like AI was last year. Everything's about blockchain now, and to take the blockchain technology and methodologies and implement it at software level, I mean OS level, and easily attainable to whatever you want level, that's like a big move, and that's a big push for them. And if they can like get people on Microsoft's blockchain, like everybody uses SQL, or like the internet runs on SQL or MySQL. And so if they could do that with like blockchain, that's a big deal, I think. That just like secures their place for longevity.
So do you see blockchain being as like a proprietary technology, or do you think it should work kind of like Apache, like the web server did, where like no company could build something as good as the open source version? So IBM just decided that they would just make all their engineers work on the open source version and then kind of tweak it for their own business use.
I kind of see it like,
And that's kind of like what Microsoft's going to do.
I think I see it like Azure or MySQL or Visual Studio or any of those other things where it starts out as something that like premium businesses use, but then open source community versions of it, like Visual Studio Community Edition or free MySQL or MariaDB or whatever. There's lots of different versions of it now. But where it starts out as something that's like high level, but then trickles down to everybody because they just really want everybody on it. Because implementing blockchain technologies, a lot of people don't have the knowledge or the money to afford developers or data scientists or whatever to implement that in their business, but they really need to. Same like a database structure. Nobody has the time to have people create a whole new database structure like MySQL, and then but they just want to be able to pay for it and have a developer that knows how to use it. So I think we'll see like blockchain developers where like you pick your flavor of blockchain usage because there's so many usages for it. And I guess, Paul, do you want to explain a little bit what the blockchain is for anybody that doesn't know by chance, or a very high level, very very high level explanation of it?
The blockchain basically takes a record or like a ledger of any type of transaction. For my purposes, I'll use transactions. Basically, what any other cryptocurrency out there right now, and it says everyone's going to have a record of every transaction that anyone on the network has a record of any transaction that goes through the network. So everyone knows what everyone else's has, and they all have to agree on what everyone else has, or else the blockchain fails. So it's kind of almost impervious to hacking unless you can make every computer on the network think the same thing, which usually only happens when there is, like, when it's actually correct, because every computer knows exactly what the record is, and if one computer disagrees, then the blockchain is almost broken, like that computer's left out because it disagrees. I don't know if that's a good explanation, but it's basically like there's 10 people in a room. Every person has a copy of the same piece of paper. You all trade one thing in the group. Everyone has to agree that one person had one thing, one person had another thing, and they all write it down at the same time. And it kind of like, and they're not allowed to talk to each other, they're just allowed to trade things. To collude as to what happens in the market just kind of works, and everyone knows what everyone has.
Mm-hmm. And this can work for data, money, anything. I know Jesse from the Holo Developer Slack says he's working with, oh man, I can't remember, Michael's company, something AR. Oh man, I really wish I could remember it off the top of my head. But anyways, he's working with them, and they're now developing blockchain technologies to implement in virtual, mixed, and augmented reality technologies. I don't know what that is. We're probably going to have Jesse on very soon, and he will probably be much better at explaining it than we could ever be. So, I mean, this technology is emerging out into everything, and whoever owns that, you know, like MySQL. Yeah, I mean, once someone builds a MySQL database, they're on that for the rest of their business life. You know what I mean? And you've got them as what's the word? Customers. You've got them as customers for the rest of their lives. So I think Microsoft is very smart with pushing that and trying to get it out there to everybody, even if it's dirt cheap, like they did with Windows 10. Get everybody on Windows 10, and then we'll start charging, you know, after that. But I don't know. It's interesting. So to get back to MR a little bit more focused, with the new MR headsets, people are saying this is like the second coming of VR. What are your thoughts on that?
I would have to agree. It seems like everyone kind of just like I saw an article today on like the mainstream news that was like Microsoft's new headsets saved VR. Like they're already like proclaiming that they have saved VR from falling into the annals of history. So I see it as very encouraging that there's so much hype around it, and it might just be Microsoft's massive marketing machine, considering that like HTC wasn't able to drive up that hype, and Facebook was like, oh yeah, we bought Oculus Rift, but we don't really care, you know? That's what it kind of felt like they just bought them, and then they were like, but we're not going to advertise really as well as like Microsoft's advertising.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. The I think I read the same article, The Second Coming, and I saw like they've saved VR, blah 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 blah, and I wonder how much of this is like pre-Christmas season hype, and how much of this will still last even after Christmas. I think this shift into 2018 is going to be a really interesting one for technology, and we've been calling it for like months now at this point, like months and months and months. What episode is this? I didn't announce what episode is this. Episode 36?
Yep.
Episode 36. So, I mean, let's see, we do one a week. I'm talking like, we've been probably saying this since like episode 14, episode 12, that there's been like this lull in technology, and all of it's going kind of, especially with Microsoft and a lot of these companies, there's been like a lull in development and new emerging technologies for consumer usage at least. And we're kind of seeing it like tumble down, tumble down, tumble down, tumble down, tumble down. And I think like 2018 is where we're going to like see what that crest is, what it grows into. I don't know, because like Magic Leap has their stuff announced. I mean, Microsoft is pushing tons of new technologies and headsets and all that kind of stuff. Apple's rumoring headsets. I mean, there's so much going on, and Google's just pumping out stuff like Google does. I don't know. So I think 2018 is going to be like a really big signal year. Do you think VR is going to stick around after that?
Yeah, I can see VR being here for a while, especially since if what I think is happening, which Microsoft moving basically all of Windows into this VR environment, I think they're going to make sure it sticks around, because this is just the precursor to get people warmed up for a HoloLens as their computer system, you know?
Yeah.
Or something similar to the HoloLens. So I think it's not going away anytime soon after all this stuff comes out, in my opinion. I think become like your new like home computer, and then MR, AR, those will be like your phones.
So here's my gripe with this. And this is going to take like a lot of the conversation we've just had and move it into this now too. The guy said like they want VR for everybody. You know, they want the WMR headsets to work for everybody. Whether you have a crappy computer, whether you have a bomb computer, they want them to work. I have some gripes with that, because I have a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old computer laptop that's pretty beefy, and it's got a nice graphics card in it, and I can barely run the WMR headsets, and that was like a $2,000 laptop when it came out. So, and that's not that old. I don't know if this like attainability is really there. I've already seen, like, I posted our video on Facebook, a lot of different places, and a couple of the comments were saying, I mean, I joined a couple VR groups, and 2 of the VR groups, people were saying, oh, my computer can't run this. My son really wants to try this, but our computer will not run it. Is there any solutions? Or is my headset just a brick at this point? And most people were like, it's just a brick. And I definitely think it's more attainable than Oculus and Vive, but I still don't think it's quite there yet for everyday consumers. Like, I would not recommend for most people to buy one, would you?
Oh no, not at all. Like your computer is really nice, and if it's not running it, then I don't see many other people's computers being able to run it. I mean, yeah, the enthusiast PC market's pretty big, but it's such a small picture in terms of the overall PC market, and Microsoft is going to have to, in the future, scale down their technology a little bit to lower-end PCs. But I know, as of like these announcements, a lot of like the mid-range PCs now are claiming they can run these headsets. So they've changed something. Like the PC manufacturers are catching up to what Microsoft is doing. Is basically what I'm saying.
Interesting. So but this is an interesting thought. So we're big proponents of like cloud-based services and for most consumers to move away from hardware-based stuff. So like a Chromebook, I feel like fits most people's needs. So that's interesting. When they want like, we're gonna see. Ooh, this will be an interesting battle to see between technologies, and I'm curious to see what people in the comments and the live chat and you think. So we're seeing like a big divergent. We're seeing like people really moving towards the browser and leaving their OS behind. Like Chrome OS will work for most people, or just a browser. People literally just have a computer just to open up Chrome or Internet Explorer, whatever they use. At the same time, we're seeing like a big push for like heavy hardware-based technologies, VR, plug-and-play AR, 4K, all of this stuff that uses a lot of hardware-based processing. Whereas like, which one's going to win? Because only one of them will be able to win, right? At least until internet speeds go up, right?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I know we love to tout like, oh yeah, the Chromebook is awesome, but like I definitely agree with you. Like cloud-based computing is definitely like the future, like where you can tie into a more powerful computer. But as of right now, I think these hardware-based applications are going to win out, and I think it's just like the cost of what a cloud-based computer that could manage that would be is just too crazy right now. Like the internet speed you'd have to pay for, probably the subscription you'd have to pay to use it, it'd just be a mess for any company right now.
No, you're definitely right. But I mean, we see like Microsoft with OneDrive and with Word, basically everything's going cloud-based, and Adobe's doing a lot of cloud-based stuff. And so people are like, especially everyday people, especially people that don't use a computer at work for work purposes, even work computers, like, could your work computer run a VR headset?
Oh no, my work computer's probably 3 years old now. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could get an upgrade because it doesn't run as well as I would like it to.
No,
But
exactly.
I'm getting a new one in a little bit anyways, so.
That's the majority. That's definitely the majority. And so we're moving to like more slick, more small, but at the same time we're wanting like it's this weird equilibrium, and I think it's just going to take progressive technology, but I think we're like at this split right now where people want their web-based stuff, but they also want their VR, but they don't want to have to pay it. Because here's my biggest gripe. So you spend $400 on a VR headset to run it, to get a decent computer that will run it. You're looking at $800 to $1,300, depending on how well you want that to run. Unless console-based comes out with like Xbox and like the new Xbox One X, which will run VR just fine, from what I understand. But at least for computer-based specs, so you're still looking at like $1,000, $1,200 setup just to run these technologies. And that's still, I like VR. I'm on board with VR more than I was a year ago. I'm way more on board with it. But that's still not there for consumers, right?
Oh, definitely not there in terms of just, if we're looking at price alone, not there. But I'd say give it a year. Like, probably the first, like, new PC releases of next year will all tout that they're VR ready. Whatever that means to the consumer and to the company, they'll be VR ready. That might not mean top-of-the-line VR headsets, but maybe these Windows MR headsets.
Do you still think VR has a place even though it is tethered? Because I think for VR to go mainstream, it has to be completely, what's the word I'm looking for? By itself.
Untethered?
untethered,
Oh,
whatever.
it's just like an independent system, kind of like the
Yeah,
HoloLens.
yep, an independent system just like the HoloLens. But to build that, you're looking at like $1,000 headset, and then if you want something with good resolution, blah blah blah, there's so much that goes into it. I don't know. It's just this weird time for technology that I almost think we're like jumping the gun a little bit. Like we want these cool technologies, we're ready for them there, but they're still trailing technologies like graphic cards and processors still haven't got quite to the point. They're really powerful and they're awesome, but they're still super expensive, and all that really hasn't got quite to the point. And I fear that might deter from the technology as a whole. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah, like sort of, I guess. I don't know if I entirely agree with you. I think like to move forward, we have to be making stuff and bringing it out to people. I mean, ultimately there has to be money there for companies to use, and if they're not showing what they're working on, there's not going to be a lot of reason for investors to say, oh, here's like in Magic Leap's purposes, like, oh, here's $500 million, because right now we see all these other similar technologies doing really well, like the Meta, the HoloLens, getting great press, and everyone's just loving it, you know?
No, yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. And I guess my mindset is always just consumer based. I always forget about businesses and everything like that because businesses are totally ready to fork over the money to get this technology, whether they have to build badass computers or whatever it takes. I think companies are ready for this. And I think the technology is still not there for consumers, but I definitely think it's there for businesses. And like we always say, the business always ends up driving it to consumers in the end, if it's worthy of being driven to consumers. I don't know. It's an interesting time, and I think 2018 is going to be a tall tale. One of the things that I think is going to tell about technology a lot for the future is the Xbox One X. What are your thoughts on that, Paul?
I think it's really cool, but I think it might be a little too powerful, almost like a pissing contest with Sony, you know, like, oh, look how powerful we can make ours, because really, other than like they beefed up the hardware, it's not much different than an Xbox One, which is why I think they call it the Xbox One X, because it just seems like an upgrade to the Xbox One, but not like a game changer, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's just looking at its stats and not knowing much about it, but just looking at its pure like hardware stats, it just seems like a pissing contest.
It's pretty badass. Like, I've seen a bunch of people try to build computers that can do what the Xbox One X can do for $500, and people are still in that $800 to $1,000 range for the same hardware and capabilities that it is. That's pretty crazy. But at the same time, it's like, do consumers really give a crap at this point? Like, if I already have an Xbox One, I'm curious to see like return investors. I wonder if we'll get stats like that. People that already own an Xbox One, how many of them will go pick up an Xbox One X? Because PS4 Pro came out and it did fairly well, but I don't think anybody that had a PS4 already went out and got a PS4 Pro just because. It's not that level of good. So, I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how it'll do. I kind of like that the home consoles kind of I think, honestly, in my opinion, I think the home console, like a PS4 Pro, an Xbox One X, maybe not the Switch, but maybe their next iteration of whatever it is really the future of, like, home entertainment and stuff like that. You'll just have, like, a really powerful console that sits there. It can run your VR, it can run all your Netflix 4K, it can run everything you need, and it's got gaming capabilities, and it's got all of that stuff. Is that kind of where you see them going with these consoles? Instead of just being like gaming consoles, it's an all-in-one entertainment unit, right?
Yeah, which was always Microsoft's vision with the Xbox One. That's why no one really liked it, because it tried to do all those things, but it never did any of those things well enough that everyone was like, yeah, this is the only device I need in my living room, you know? Like, yeah, I know you own one, but you have to admit, like, you use your
I rarely play it. I rarely do anything. I think that's a lot to like the testament of I just don't game in general anymore.
Yeah.
I really like that methodology though. I don't think the execution was there for PS4 or anybody that's in that unit right now. I still think there's like a lot to be capitalized at there. But I definitely think that's like it, because people want that power. They want that ability that that building a computer brings them and having a high-end computer brings them. They don't want to deal with sourcing the parts. They don't want to deal with the OS. They don't want to deal with having it in their living room. They don't want to have to deal with any of that. They just want like a plug-and-play system. And I think that's really where we're going. And I think that's the same way with laptops. I think that's ease of use is like more important than anything else right now. I just heard an interesting thing that in the between 2000 and like 2012, a really big deal to people was like entertainment systems, like having a nice home theater, having the biggest TV, the nicest surround sound, the new Blu-ray player, the new cables, everything to run like the ultimate home theater setup. And now nobody gives two shits about a home theater. Like everybody's flip-flopped. They don't care about the like I can't remember who did the study, but they basically said consumers just care that they can watch it when they want, on what device they want, or they can, well, let's say watch, because people want video gaming too. People can be entertained on what device they want, when they want, and as long as they can see it and hear it, they don't care. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I would say I have to agree. And I think we kind of belong to a community much like the community of the Holo Herald, where I think we enjoy the customization more than most people. Like, we like having something that, like a home theater system that we go home to and we're proud of, you know, because like we can do a whole lot of stuff with. And I think we're definitely in the minority in terms of that. Or like we want to build our own PC because we want more power, or like we go for higher end laptops and things like that. Not because we think they work better, but because we can do more with them in terms of like what our interests are. But in terms of like the majority of people, they really just need something to watch Netflix on, you know?
Exactly. And they don't care. Like if I can guarantee you, people don't care about the difference between 720p and 4K. Like if we go and we ask the majority of consumers and the majority of everybody, I doubt they give a crap about 720p and 4K, as long as they can get it when they want it and it loads really fast and they can hear it and it's just there when they want it. I think that's honestly what they care about. I personally, I really like 4K and I like having the high aspect ratio and the enthusiast, and I think that blurs the lines for a lot of us at the same time. But I mean, like, you got a 4K TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you really be that butthurt if you had a 1080p?
Oh, not at all. I wouldn't even have been able to tell the difference, honestly. I mean, it was really just because it wasn't much more expensive than a 1080p, and I know that's where our content is going. It's all going to be in 4K eventually, and so I just decided, like, oh, I don't want to deal with this in the future, so here I am.
No, they're super cheap. Like, 4K is the same price as 1080p. Like, it's even hard to find 1080p TVs now, which is good, and I think it's good to bring everybody up along with us, but at the same time, it's like, at what point does it just turn into much ado about nothing? I'm curious to see, like, what progression we're going to go to, because now we have 16K, and for creators, like for us, we love to make our content in 4K, but we always still downscale it to 1080p because I don't think our audience cares, you know. So I don't know. It's an interesting time to see technology, and that kind of transcends over to, like, the new WRMR headsets and everything like that. It's like, what's the line between, like, I'm content with the $400 Acer headset, but most people want the Primax or something like that. There's got to be like a happy medium, and I'm curious to see what that is. I think this holiday season will really be a determiner of that, don't you?
Definitely. I think the holiday season will be huge for it, but it's not going to be a make or break, in my opinion. I think the holiday season will be good for who's our first adopters and what are they going to do with it and how are they going to review it. And then from there, that's when you get all the people who don't typically buy in on first technologies. Like, they wait until another generation, or they wait until a couple months, especially nowadays with how many things can be fixed with the software update. Like, I mean, even the Google Pixel 2 fixed its screen with a software update. I mean,
That's awesome.
I just think it's crazy that they can do that. Like, you can fix so many problems with your hardware with just a software update. So we'll see how it fares, and then I think you'll see more sales growth in early 2018, like second quarter of 2018.
And we exactly called it. We said AR is going to take a backseat for a while because this is the consumer ready product, you know, whether it's consumer business or consumer, like this VR, this is like what's flashy and good right now, and they're gonna milk it for all it's worth. We've been saying this for, if you guys have listened to the podcast, we've been saying this for months and months and months, and so since we started the podcast, people are gonna milk VR for all it's worth. But at the end, AR is where it's at. Like, you still feel that way, right? Or do you think VR has more place? Has your opinion changed on VR at all over the span of the 36 episodes of the podcast?
Yeah, it started out very sour, but
Very.
I can see it has a place in the home. And I still see it as kind of a gimmicky thing. But I think these WinMR headsets, at least the software underlying them, is what takes it out of that gimmicky place in my mind and brings it into this idea of like, okay, I can see having a VR headset at home and then an AR headset that I wear to work or like out in the streets, you know?
No, yeah, you're definitely right. I think my opinion's definitely changed, and so I think my long-term opinion is still the same. I think everything's going towards AR, and good AR can do VR. But I think for right now, I think VR definitely has a place, especially since we've got our hands on a headset finally, and I see all the strides that people are making seeing all the steps that companies are taking to make this attainable to everybody to do this. I think it's a good equilibrium. Companies are trying to get it in the hands of people, and people are trying to get their hands on it. Whereas before, it was just companies trying to get it in the hands of people, like force feeding it. Like, please take our headset, please get into VR, please do that. Now I kind of see like this nice equilibrium where we're both stepping halfway. It's really nice. Any other AR, MR, XR news that we can just brush off before we close down?
There's supposed to be a mixed reality headset accessory coming out next year, and that's for the HoloLens. They're coming out with an accessory.
What?
Yeah, and along with that news, I guess the HoloLens just gained the protective eyewear certification, so it can be worn by more than 2 billion first-line workers in factories and like fields who require eye protection. So pretty big news for HoloLens in terms of its expansion into business.
That is, and that's like a big hit to Daiquiri and those other companies that was like their core business, was trying to do that. And now HoloLens can do it for cheaper. There was so much discussion on the Holo developers Slack about the best way to hook the HoloLens to a helmet. I mean, it was like pages and pages of the Slack, all just dedicated to people modding it to their helmets. Which, in my idea, that's like probably the best way. That's probably the most comfortable way to wear it. Just have a nice helmet that holds everything. That sounds awesome. I think HoloLens, if there's an accessory, I think HoloLens should start introducing that, because that, I give it to people, and that's one of the hardest things, is them getting it adjusted correctly, then the weight on their nose, everything like that. If they could just throw a helmet on with all the AR stuff, that sounds awesome. But I don't know. It's interesting. What did they say? What the accessory is?
Oh no, they just like hinted at it. Like, it's just like, yeah, there's nothing like, yeah, there's nothing here like that's like, this is exactly what it's going to be. It just says, expect it.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited. Any Magic Leap drama? Do a quick Google search on Magic Leap, see if anything's happened since yesterday. For those of you that might be new to the podcast and have made it this far, thank you. You guys are awesome. And we have a weekly segment called Magic Leap Drama, because without fail, every week there's something new to talk about Magic Leap, whether it's conspiracy theories, whether it's a leak, whether it's a lawsuit, whether it's more funding. There's always something to talk about. And for a company that doesn't have a product, there's a lot of news on them. Anything interesting?
There actually hasn't been news since October on it.
What is the last tidbit? Is it about their website drop?
No, it's just that they hire co-founder of Lucasfilms.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. That's not too big of a drama. Huh. I wonder if they're keeping things quiet for their new headset. There was so much that happened with their conspiracy theories on their website and stuff. Hopefully we'll be having people to talk on to explain all the conspiracy theories about Magic Leap, because they're pretty exciting, actually. Did you get to hear about that on the podcast last week?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, their website has like a bunch of hidden stuff leaking all these dates and crazy stuff. It's really weird, like Morse code and like having hacked the website in a certain way. I don't know. It's really interesting stuff, actually. So anyways, we might have that for next week. Any closing words, Paul?
No, I just want to thank everyone for showing up. We had a lot of viewers tonight, which was awesome. I didn't expect that since we're on an off night, but we had some new people show up, so it was always great to hear from everyone, and it seems like we had a lively discussion in the comments while we were talking. I mean, yeah, people talked a lot, so it's always good to have a great community surrounding us, and we love you guys.
Yes, exactly.
Getting a little sentimental there. Sorry about that, everyone.
Yeah,
You'll never hear me say it again.
The tier cast. Watch, we'll screen cap it and we'll just throw it at the end of every video. And so it's just permanently said. Any interesting comments, Caden? I saw quite a bit of discussion. What were they talking about, Paul? Were you watching it?
Yeah.
Do you want to give a quick shout out to the people that were talking?
Yeah, we got Snail Mail Games. We've got Noah. Tuck
Always
shut
there.
up for a moment. I don't know if he kept talking or left. We had #1 HoloLens fan, of course. He's the best. Then we got Leandror12. He was expecting more Apple talk. I don't know if there's a lot of news about Apple. And there was one other. Viva de Soporte showed up. He's from Brazil.
Nice.
Said a few things.
Wow, we did have a lot of people. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you guys. Thank you guys for all joining the podcast. #1 HoloLens fan, if you're listening, before we close this out, quick question. What is the best way for us to get a hold of you? Twitter DMs, YouTube messaging? We just have a couple questions we want to ask you. Anyways, moving on. Thank you guys to everybody that joined. Thank you to Caden for running our switcher. And soon we'll get him a God voice mic, and it's going to be awesome. Just you guys wait for that. Thank you to Austin for not being here. Thank you to Paul for being here. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening, whether you guys joined in the comments or not. We always appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the support we've recently had. Our videos have been gaining a lot of, we got a lot of new subscribers and we got a lot of new attention on our videos. That's really awesome, and the support's been really great. So if you guys do have friends that are interested in the MR community, go ahead and invite them into the Holo Herald. We want this to be a place where we just talk about MR, AR, and then we can rub it in people's faces when we were there before it was cool to be there. And you got to invite your friends to that, right? So anyways, thank you guys so much. This has been episode 36 of the episode 36, yes. This has been episode 36 of the podcast. One night late, but it's been really great. And this is the Holo Herald signing off. Thank you guys so much. We will catch you guys next week.
See ya.
Was he good in anything? Yeah, he was the best motorcycle rider I've ever seen in my life. Best. Yeah, best.